Nothing I'm going to say here today is an absolute truth. Nothing. If it makes sense to you, take it for your life. If it doesn't, just acknowledge it, let it pass, and move on. The only thing I ask is, listen to this with attention, real attention, without taking anything out of context, without jumping to conclusions, without turning this into extremism. Just listen, think, process, and draw your own conclusion. Because there is one thing in all of nature, not just in human beings, that influences everything I'm about to say. And a lot of people forget this, or pretend they don't know, or they do know, but they don't understand it deeply. I'm talking about natural selection. And I know that when you hear natural selection, it sounds like biology class, Darwin school, but that's not it. Natural selection is something that exists inside you right now, in this exact moment. It defines your potential within your species. It defines what makes you a strong man, an attractive man, a man of value, a respected man, or an ignored one. It's connected to your testosterone, your energy, your health, your healthy aggression, that kind of aggression that moves you, not the one that destroys you. And when you understand this, everything starts to make sense, including what I'm about to say now about masturbation. Because think with me, there's an energy inside you that pushes you forward. It doesn't matter whether you're conscious of it or not. It doesn't matter whether you're in a good phase or a bad one. There is something in you that has existed since the first man walked the planet. A force, an instinct, a need to validate yourself to the opposite sex, to have value, to develop, to prove yourself, to become a man capable of surviving, conquering, and reproducing. This energy is so strong that you can try to pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. Try going without sex. Try going without masturbation. Try living while denying this energy. You go crazy. You get restless. You get agitated. You get that feeling of something's wrong. And something is wrong. Because when that energy has no direction, it turns into anxiety. It turns into mental fog. It turns into bottled up anger. But when it has direction, when it's used the right way, it becomes growth. It becomes discipline. It becomes courage. It becomes presence. It becomes that natural impulse that makes you want to be better, not for others, but for yourself. Where you think that desire for social value, to improve your body, your career, your habits, comes from. It comes from that energy. It comes from that instinctive force. It comes from that natural selection that exists inside you. And that's why when we talk about masturbation, we're not talking about morality. It's not about good or bad. It's about energy. It's about potential. It's about what happens inside you when you throw that energy away carelessly, several times a week or every day. When you masturbate excessively, you break that system. You disconnect that energy. You weaken it. That natural engine that pushes you forward simply loses intensity. Think about the feeling you get right after you orgasm. You know exactly what it is. You get soft, lazy, unmotivated. The world loses a little bit of its color, and you know you get like that. Now imagine that happening constantly, every day, all the time, year after year. This conditions your brain to believe that pleasure should be easy, and that reshapes all your behaviors. Because when the brain learns that there's a type of pleasure that comes with zero effort, it starts wanting that in everything. And then you start avoiding challenges, avoiding discomfort, avoiding responsibility. You lose the courage to chase what's hard. And everything that's hard, you look at it and think, I'll do it later. I don't have the energy right now. I'm not in the mood. I'm not motivated. And it's not a lack of motivation. It's an excess of easy pleasure. Because real sex requires energy. It requires context. It requires social risk. It requires presence. It requires action. But porn and masturbation, they're effortless. You don't need anything. You don't need to be interesting. You don't need to take care of yourself. You don't need posture. You don't need interaction. You just click, and that's it. And that's where the problem starts. Today, there's an absurd amount of men addicted to pornography, and they don't even know it. Men who are ashamed to admit it. Young men who already can't feel pleasure with real sex. Men who only function with artificial stimulation. Men who are 20, 22 years old and can't have sex without porn because their brain has been completely conditioned. And I want you to think about this. This isn't weakness. This is brain chemistry. This is reward. This is dependency. It works just like a drug. And the more you use, the more you need. The more you need, the less pleasure you feel from the natural. And when the natural is no longer enough, you're trapped. And here comes one of the biggest truths. There's no such thing as, I'm going to reduce little by little. Reducing slowly is the perfect formula to stay trapped. It's like an alcoholic. There's no such thing as just one beer every now and then. Either you cut it for real, or you never leave. That's why NoFap exists. Not because it became trendy, but because there is a biological limit. And once you cross it, the only way out is to reset. Now, pay attention to this. You know that good aggression? That drive to conquer? That force that gives you courage to face life? That feeling of being alive, present, strong, determined? All of that is sexual energy. It's like a man's central battery. It fuels every other area. Focus, discipline, courage, communication, creativity, motivation. And when you waste that energy on meaningless masturbation, especially with pornography, you're throwing away that battery. You're burning something valuable for a weak reward. And the worst part, you spend a lot and receive little. And then minutes later, you want more, and more, and more. And that becomes habit, compulsion, dependency. Porn works just like a drug. Quick peak, quick crash, tolerance, withdrawal, compulsion. It's chemistry. It's the brain. It's not lack of character. So this video isn't about morality, religion, right or wrong. It's about energy. It's about your potential as a man. It's about understanding that there's a force inside you that defines everything you do. And excessive masturbation destroys that force. In the next video, I'll talk about NoFap, what it is, where it came from, why it works, and why, for many people, it's one of the most transformative decisions of their lives. If there's a topic within this subject you want to see, comment it. If it makes sense to me and to what I do here on the channel, I'll record it